All right, welcome back to our last stop of our virtual Watershed tour here for Giving Tuesday and Giving Week. We are at probably the most famous part of the watershed, and that's our beach, but I'm kind of tucked away here behind the sea grapes because it is a windy day, and sea grapes and the red mangroves behind me, they give us a lot of good protection from wind and especially from storms and why they're, making them one of the many reasons why they're super important. So where we're at right now is towards the southern end of the MacArthur Beach State Park, which is a phenomenal beach. It's a state park, so it's run by DEP, of course. Staff here they consistently win awards from DEP being the best managed state park in Florida, which I think is really significant and special. And it's really split up between a couple different habitats. There's quite a few. On the other side, you have Munyon Island, you have seagrass, you have a lot of red mangroves, you have a really nice estuary area with some mangrove islands that you can paddle through. Definitely not on a day like today where it's too windy, but kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding is super popular here, and it's a great spot for all kinds of birds, manatees, sharks, spotted eagle rays, horseshoe crabs, all kinds of wildlife in the area. And then as you get closer, they have a really, really nice little visitor center where they have events with music. They have a little amphitheater thing. They have a nice little visitor center that has a theater. They have different events throughout the year, and it's just a great spot. And around that visitor center, you see more of what we call a coastal hammock habitat, where you'll find trees like gumbo limbo, like Spanish stopper, all these, native plants, sea grapes, so on and so forth. Then you have a nice big walking bridge, like that's made of wood. They also have a tram, and that goes over what we call Lake Worth Cove, which is a really important area for Lake Worth Lagoon, because it's a holdout area for oyster reef and seagrass, still good red mangrove habitat, so on. Really great fishing spot if you're in a kayak, and a really good spot to spend wildlife. And then you walk over that bridge and you come into one of the rarer habitats in Florida, which is the remnant beach dune, and that's where we're standing right now. We have sea grapes here, more gumbo limbo, and then there's a raised section that's protecting us from the beach on the other side. Dunes like this existed all throughout South Florida, and then as development came in, those dunes were replaced with condos, which don't offer the same protection from wind, obviously, clearly doesn't offer habitat, but the areas that do have this habitat, you kind of notice that things congregate around it. Munyon Island, the Cove, Munyon Cove a little bit down south, all really good quality habitat spots. So much so that planes and helicopters love flying very low above us. And that happens quite a bit because it's a very picturesque spot. Of course, our most famous spot, our most famous part of the watershed, the thing that everyone comes here for, it seems like, is our beach. And this beach is a really special one because it is surrounded by the native dune vegetation. It's something that doesn't exist in a lot of spots. There's some really good reef off of here, and if you really want to see how special this area is really known for getting a really strong mullet run. And every winter, of course, we famously get thousands of little blacktip and spinner sharks, and this is a really key area where they hang out at because of the habitat that's on both sides of the barrier islands. Really good example of this is in a BBC documentary called Seven Wonders, One Planet, and it basically looks at the different continents around the world and the habitat quality, habitats that exist on each continent. And on the episode in North America, they have a really good segment that was filmed right here and around Singer Island, following that mullet run and the tarpon and the sharks and all the fish and birds that go after it. It's really special scene and something that happens annually. MacArthur Beach State Park, of course, is super is a pretty popular park, but it is pretty expansive. So it's one of the few beaches you can go in South Florida and probably not see loads and loads of people on the beach, which is a big draw to it. And similarly, when we do our water sampling, like what Alex does, has been doing all throughout the day, and she touched on this on an earlier video, the areas that have this around us, right? The more green, I talked about in grassy waters how important it is to protect those plant areas and those aquatic vegetation, because that is what's cleaning our water. Well, very similarly, these dunes, areas like the state park and Munyon Cove that still have a somewhat healthy habitat of subaquatic vegetation, and the estuary plants like red mangroves and things like that, those are the areas that consistently have better water quality. And it's kind of like a chicken or an egg thing, like which one came first? Well, the better water quality really influences that subaquatic vegetation and that habitat to stick around, and those same plants in that habitat is what's cleaning the water. So, to put that into perspective, over the fall, one of the projects that we do with FWC is we survey, and the goal is to tag nesting horseshoe crabs. And we know that they nest inside the state park. We find juveniles all the time. We find their molts all the time. It's just a matter of pinpointing which beach, which area in the lagoon they specifically use to nest. And that's really important work because horseshoe crabs are very picky. They like really good water quality, and they need natural sandy beaches in the estuary to nest at. So the areas that we document where they're nesting are areas where there's good water quality, good habitat, and those are areas, that we know, and just essentially providing more evidence to show that these are areas that need to be protected. Areas like Munyon Cove, which are persistently threatened by development, right? Similar to Grassy Waters. Grassy Waters is next to 441 State Road 7, and there's a persistent effort to widen that road to get more traffic, which will lead to more development in the area, which equates to even more impact on grassy waters and those plants. Similar to Munyon Cove, there's really good, or really good by Lake Worth Lagoon standards. Definitely no Florida Bay, it's definitely no Bahamas, but for Lake Worth Lagoon standards, there are some really good patches of shoal grass, especially this last year, where we didn't take on any Lake Okeechobee discharging. It was kind of a low rain year until the 2 hurricanes, so there wasn't a whole lot of runoff pollution. So it's really a banner year to show what the lagoon can do if we start, relieving that pressure onto it. And it really showed in areas like Munyon Cove where it had really nice shoal grass, which is something that manatees love to graze on, really just like hanging out and showing what it can do. The water was nice and clear, better water quality, and the more that we have that, like Alex pointed out, the less bacteria blooms we have, and our data over the last few years has really come to show that, because we're out here every week. We're doing up to 15 sites every week to sample, which is quite the undertaking. We're lucky to have staff like Alex out there sampling on a regular basis, and we kind of pass the baton to make sure that we provide as consistent data as possible. And what we have been showing is areas that are more natural, and the areas that have living shoreline projects like Jewel Steinhardt Cove and Bryant Park, even to some degree, those are the areas that are going to be better off than other areas in the lagoon that is just seawall with minimal habitat and minimal plants. So this work is really important, and we're really appreciative of the opportunity to keep it going, not just to do the research, but to take our data and to help make better, help encourage agencies and government and local governments to make better decisions and to do things that is going to chip away at, all these environmental problems that we're dealing with, especially in terms of water quality, because there isn't really one silver bullet answer, right? We often hear from groups that this is what we have to do, this is what's going to save the water, or, no, it's this thing. And it's really difficult to pinpoint what that one thing is. I think we lean more toward we need to protect the natural habitats that do exist because we're never going to be able to replace them when we lose a place like Munyon Cove. And then, followed up behind that, we need to do the best that we can to better manage these areas and better do more restoration and habitat creation projects. DEP does a really good job with this park and maintaining it. We're lucky in Palm Beach County to have Environmental Resources Management, which is a county government office that really has just taken the lead as an example of doing habitat restoration and building islands and planting red mangroves where they haven't been in the past. And all these things are working together to clean up our lagoon, to provide better habitat for animals, to make sure it's a cleaner playground for those of us that, paddle and fish and dive in the lagoon. And it's all important, and we all need to find a place for all that. So I think, as Melissa pointed out before, our work is entirely driven by donations and a generous community, and we kind of hope that this series of videos really highlights just how big our watershed is and the different things that affect it and how much work needs to be done, starting simply with just an understanding of, where this water is coming from and how it moves through and how we're all part of this community, this system that needs to work together so that we can all benefit and have a great place to live. So definitely follow along. We have more opportunities and events to volunteer. We have, shoreline maintenance days. We have our fundraising dinner coming up on Sunday. We have tomorrow a nature journaling outing at Grassy Waters where you'll be able to tour the site and learn about nature journaling and why that's really important to us. And a Friday we'll be opening up our Jar Zero Waste little shopette or pop-up shop at our base camp in downtown Lake Worth, 111 North M Street. That's really exciting because, we're doing it mostly because there's a series of products, if you will. It's speaking of making better decisions. There's a number of products that we can work into our lives, and we're using it as a teaching opportunity because we can make these small decisions to, use less plastic, to use less chemicals that harm us and the environment. And also it provides us an opportunity to help fund our organization. And like any other good nonprofit, you can always donate right at the top left of our website. If you go to lwwk.org, O-R-G, and you go all the way up to the top on the left, you'll see a donate button. You'll see also a button to reserve for our fundraising dinner on Sunday, which will be really fun because there's really a lot of ways that you can get involved. You can volunteer your time. You can donate. You can just, even as simple as just reaching out and asking questions. We really love that because anytime we can help the community understand our watershed, understand the issues that we face and the work that needs to be done, we're all going to benefit. And I think that's it for now. If you want to go ahead and show the beach, it's such a nice day. It is windy. It is wavy. There might be some, on other beaches you might have some good surfable waves, which is another thing we love to do. But this really is a special place on the Lake Worth Lagoon, and it's a really good reminder of why we do the work that we do. So thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we're going to have loads of other similar opportunities coming up where we're going to do more virtual tours and more outings and more classes. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.